it. Welcome to the special live edition of Comics League. I'm Jared. I'm here with Dawson from the Four Nerds. What's up, dude?
Hey, man. By the way, I got to say I'm honored that I'm a part of that intro. That's pretty hilarious. I didn't expect to see myself, then bam, there I am.
Is this your first time seeing the intro?
No, I think I saw it before. I just had forgotten that I was in it. I noticed myself in the corner, and I was like, oh, there I am, looking all
There you are. Yes. So I figured, so a lot sort of happened this week that I was like, okay, here are our topics. So first off, I just wanted to start off. So what comics have you been checking out, Dawson?
Oh, man. I've been kind of reading a lot of older stuff lately. Not like super old, but just older than current stuff. I actually have become really obsessed with a Image Comics series called Haunt. Mostly just because I actually went to my comic shop a couple of months back, and the guy there, I'm really good friends with him. He knows I'm a huge fan of Greg Capullo. He knows that Greg Capullo's my guy. And Greg Capullo did the outlines for the first 5 issues and did a lot of the art from issues, I think 6 until 26, I think. So he did a good chunk of it. And so my friend sold me the first 5 issues at like a discount price. And then I found out that the rest of the series for some reason is incredibly difficult to find. So I've been on an obsessive search ever since. I've gotten a lot of them, but I've been reading a lot of that. That's quickly become one of my favorite characters, honestly. It's actually connected to Spawn, obviously, with Image Comics and everything. And Todd McFarlane was a part of its creation. I've also coincidentally been getting more into Spawn, reading a lot of those issues. I now currently own most of the first 50 issues of Spawn. I'm kind of late in the game of collecting that series, but again, Greg Capullo, part of it, so
there you go.
Obviously had to. I finally recently finished reading through Batman Joker, The Deadly Duo by Mark Silvestri.
I still have to finish that, but it looks so gorgeous.
It really is. Mark Silvestri knocked it out of the park, both with art and writing. It's really great. And a lot of people, when people talk about comic art, a lot of things people mock is the whole chicken scratches, like a lot of lines. Honestly, I love it. It gives it a lot of texture. Mark Silvestri is the master at that.
Yes.
So reading through that has been quite a treat. And obviously Dark Knight of Steel is another one I've been reading. A lot of Elseworld, Black Label type of stuff. That tends to be my jam, just because there's more creative freedom there and independent stuff. So that's just a sample of a lot of what I've been reading recently, along with mangas. Actually, I've been reading more mangas. Like I'm reading through Fullmetal Alchemist, the manga. I'm also reading another manga called The Heroic Tale of Arslan, which is created by the same person who made Fullmetal Alchemist. So that's been kind of going down that rabbit hole. But yeah, that's, to sum it up briefly, that's what I've been reading recently.
Sweet. What's up, Draga? What's up, Taladia? Me personally, I'm in the process of going through Grant Morrison's Batman run because I got the first volume of the omnibus, so I'm enjoying that.
I still need to get the second volume of that.
Yeah, I need to read that. I mean, I decided that since so much of Batman in the movies is inspired by that run, I might as well just get through it. Plus, I managed to find a copy of the omnibus on my LCS because as soon as Gunn said it's inspired part of the DCU, that was super hard to find.
Oh yeah, a lot of that stuff sold out really quickly.
Yeah, I've been. Obviously, I DM'd you a lot of picks. I've been reading the Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo run of Batman from the New 52. Yes. Digging the hell out of that.
That is honestly one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Batman run of all time. A lot of it is because of the art, because art's my jam. But Scott Snyder, of course, with Batman, that whole storyline is just amazing. I read it through all the time. I have all the hardcover editions. I just need the omnibuses for it, but I'd have to justify that to the wife.
yeah, of course. But yeah, I've been reading that. I've been reading a lot of Punisher because Marvel keeps screwing up that character, so I want to get as many of the good storylines before I lose it. And then in terms of indies, I started reading because I backed these on Indiegogo a while ago, so I got the Mythicals by my friend Hojo, and then
nice.
Truth, Justice, and the American Way by Gabe El Taib.
Interesting.
Like,
I hadn't heard of that one.
I've been checking that out. That was in response that he actually. I think the way he tells that story is that part of the reason why they wanted to do that, the Truth, Justice, the American Way, is because of DC changing Superman's motto away from Truth, Justice, and the American Way, which isn't a kind of
Yeah.
seem to have gone back to American Way, like in the Super Sons movie, and then when you hear James Gunn talk about Superman.
Well, it's because DC quickly realized that a lot of people were not happy about that because he is an American-born character created by Jewish immigrants who came here and, pursued the American dream. And so it's just, yeah, I just think they realized, well, that was kind of dumb. So let's slowly walk that back without publicly saying we're walking that back.
Plus, here's the thing. You and I have both encountered these people. The Superman fan base, the purists, if you change anything, yeah, woe betide because we saw this with Zack Snyder. He changed, arguably, he didn't really change anything. He just
Looked at it from a different point of view. Yeah.
Yeah, he just represented it in a new way, and they were like, "No, I hate this. It's not Reeves," and I'm like, "Because it's not Christopher Reeves playing him."
Well, what's funny about that, you mentioned a lot of Superman fans, and like, don't get me wrong, I have a lot of good friends who are Superman fans, but the amount of Superman fan groups on Facebook that I have left over the years just because of the toxicity, like, man, I could go on about that for a while. So you're preaching to the choir, man.
Did I ever tell you about the time where I got a lot of hate because I said Lois Lane was worthless? All right. So I published a video. What's up, Throth? So I published a video that was talking about, because I prefer Superman with Wonder Woman, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I did a video talking about the way Lois Lane is written now. She's kind of redundant, and there's no stakes because Superman's gonna save her. It's like I was reading the first arc of Warworld Saga. I open it up and she's in danger, and I'm like, so Superman's gonna save her. Why do I care?
Yeah, it's recently it's definitely become more of that where she kind of plays less and less of a part. Then again, there's some Superman stories I haven't quite kept up to date with, so I might be speaking out of ignorance, but I can definitely see that point of view to a certain extent.
Yeah, so I said that she basically nowadays contributes nothing. And then I published that to YouTube. Ironically, it's one of my most viewed videos, but so they're actually helping me out there. But I had people tell me to go F myself. I was called a misogynist, and I'm like, you realize that I want Superman with the main feminist icon, right?
Yeah. Also, just pointing out the way a character is written, like that's not hating on the character. That's more so saying stuff about the writers than the character itself. Excuse me, which isn't really a big deal in my personal opinion.
True. Speaking of Superman, all right, so yesterday and today we got a bunch of cameos announced for Legacy. Now, the thing about it, the thing that I think is really weird is that you notice the hypocrisy of people that were critiquing Zach for having just hints at the Justice League members existing in BVS, and now everyone's like, "Oh no, he's world building."
That was exactly what came to mind when I saw those castings. Which don't get me wrong, like the idea of Nathan Fillion being a Green Lantern is cool. Although I think he's a little old to be Guy Gardner for how I personally view him, but so that's kind of an odd choice to me. But that is what I thought. I was like, oh, now all of a sudden it's okay to not have every single character that's featured have their own movie before they're put into a team-up film or featured in another DC film. That's interesting how as soon as there's a different person in the director's chair or a few years goes by, like all of a sudden that's just a different way that people view it. And so like, I don't want to say I'm bitter. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to say I'm a little bitter about it as a fan of what Zack Snyder was doing.
Dude, you can go ahead and admit it. You're among friends.
I was slightly bitter about that. I'm not going to lie to you. But, again, I was okay with Zack Snyder doing that. And if James Gunn pulls it off well, which, I mean, he's made decent films before, so I can't really see him making an awful movie. But, more power to him if he's able to pull.
Let's not forget, he's never written Superman before.
That's very, very true. And I don't know, because to me, the last thing James Gunn wise that actually no, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 I watched, and that was actually interesting.
Good.
But before that, the last James Gunn thing that I had watched was the first 3 episodes of Peacemaker, which, look, to all those in the audience who enjoy Peacemaker, like, power to you, like what you like. But I couldn't get past the first 3 episodes of that series just because the quote unquote humor just was too much for me. So, although I'd imagine he's smart enough to not shove all that kind of humor in a Superman story, at least I hope he's smart enough not to do that.
One would hope.
Yeah, one would hope. So, yeah, but I back to what we were saying, like, I agree. There seems to be definitely more of a double standard as far as like how people are treating a bunch of cameos happening in a DC film, especially the first one in the DCU, even though technically it's not going to be because Blue Beetle.
Well, and that's its own issue, because let's say Blue Beetle tanks. You're walking into a universe with a black eye already.
Well, here's the thing that my issue with that is that, he says right now that Superman is the first DCU film. He says that, of course, after Creature Commandos, that'll be like the first main project. But he also says that Blue Beetle's a part of his DCU. And so, literally speaking, that would make Blue Beetle the first movie of the DCU, which is just, I don't know. To me, it just kind of seems like he's like, well, it's going to be a part of it. But if it doesn't make a lot of money, then we're not necessarily obligated to it. That's kind of the feeling that I get. For the sake of, I can't remember the actor's name for Blue Beetle right now, but for his sake, I hope that's not the case. Yeah.
And by the way, Otis, okay, saying that Superman needs Lois in order to keep his connection to humanity ignores the contributions of Jonathan and Martha Kent.
Well, it also kind of ignores the contribution of Lana Lang. To some extent, Jimmy Olsen, even though I think Jimmy Olsen's kind of unnecessary too. I couldn't really care less.
Hell, even Batman to a degree.
Yeah, I'd say that's a good point. Batman is definitely another thing that maintains Superman's connection to humanity. I mean, Batman literally represents the paranoia of humanity in regards to Superman, so that's a good point too.
I got news for you. In the Superman Wonder Woman series they did in the New 52, which was perfect, they had this scene where Batman goes to Clark and he goes, "Hey, listen, dude, there's a reason why I've always felt the most comfortable working with you. It's because no matter what, you view yourself as a human that has powers. You don't view yourself as a Kryptonian. You will always see humanity as your home team." And that immediately just knocks out of the park that whole, he needs Lois in order to be human. And I think that comes from the Injustice comics, which ignores the fact that you also had an evil Wonder Woman and Batman completely like guessing Superman. There were other factors beyond Lois dying that led to Superman becoming a dictator.
True. Lois, of course, being probably the main contributor, but it wasn't the only one for sure. That's a valid point.
I still maintain he would have been able to talk down had Batman like said, "Okay, dude, immediately after the Joker died, before anyone else died, Batman could have gone to him and said, "Dude, I understand what you did. Hell, maybe I even agree with you. Just walk down with this, heal. It's gonna be okay. I'm here for you." And then guess what? Yeah. You wouldn't have gotten Injustice. That's why I say they're actually both Superman and Batman are the bad guys of Injustice.
Yeah, no, I can agree. You have the people who commit the atrocities, if I can even speak. Then you have the people that enable them, right? That's the big issue there.
Yeah, but anyway, so back to Superman Legacy. Now, to be clear, like Don said, I like a lot of the castings that they're doing. It's like with like Mr. Terrific and Hawkgirl and Guy Gardner and even like Plastic Man, which I'm like, okay. It seems to me like James Gunn is casting the version of the Justice League that were around during the death of Superman, i.e. the ones that got their asses kicked by Doomsday. So
yeah,
I'm like,
I can see that.
Unless they're going with more of a Justice League Unlimited thing, which I'm like, here's my issue with introducing these characters in Superman Legacy. If this is supposed to be the star of their DCU in a Superman movie, why not just cast Batman and Wonder Woman and have them show up? Because they're his best friends.
Yeah, well, I think I saw a post that someone had shared by James Gunn where he's talking about the double life, how he's going to be associating with these
Hmm.
superpowered beings. Like, I can understand that approach.
Hmm.
My only main concern with it is it going to be too jam-packed? You know, that's a big concern that a lot of people have with films with a major, like a lot of cameos and such. I mean, we're seeing that all the time now with things like Deadpool 3. Is it going to be too weighed down by the amount of cameos that are included in order to tell a cohesive story? That we had that kind of slight issue with The Flash.
Hmm.
You have that basically with any kind of multiverse story right now is guilty of that issue. But is all this stuff like introducing, of course, you're going to have to introduce Lois Lane. You have Jimmy Olsen because James Gunn's been pretty adamant that he's going to have Jimmy Olsen for some reason. Perry White, of course. Like you're introducing all these people, and you also have to introduce Ma and Pa Kent. Like you have to introduce a lot of people if you're trying to do the whole Daily Planet side of things and superhero side of things. That's a lot of character introductions, and especially considering the fact that this is a world they all exist already. It honestly kind of gives off the vibe of what happens in an animated movie, where um, you know, you have the character, and then all of a sudden you just meet some of these other superheroes who are in the middle of saving the day, and you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, they're here. That works. That makes sense. But are people going to be okay with that in a live action setting? That's the thing that kind of concerns me the most.
Here's the difference. Here's where people who are showing no concern for this are ignoring. Yes, we as comic book fans would love to see these characters in live action, absolutely. But
Of course.
the general audience is going to walk into this and go, "I thought this was a Superman movie." And by the way, Otis, yeah, I acknowledge that part. I get that, but saying that without Lois, Superman loses his link to humanity is ignoring the fact that he was raised human for most of his life. In fact, he never remembered Krypton. That's my main point. But back to this,
Yeah.
it's like the general audience is going to be like, I thought this was a Superman movie.
Yeah, and that's the big thing right now that's very concerning is the general audience, right? The general audience has not been swayed really to go and see DC projects for the past 3 releases, honestly. And that's a big concern because the general audience is where you make the vast majority of your money.
Mm-hmm.
And if the general audience becomes convinced that this is just going to simply be another cameo fest, then that's going to be a big problem for your film going forward and for your cinematic universe going forward. Because if you can't get them to go to your first big thing, what's going to make them go to your next big thing or next even small thing? That's just the main issue that I have right now.
Plus the fact that it would be one thing if these were more well-known characters. Like you could have at least had Hal Jordan Green Lantern show up, which like Guy Gardner, um, Mr. Terrific. Okay, I can go with Hawkgirl since he's a little more well-known because of the cartoon. But
Sure.
I'm like, you're taking cameo. I get it. It's James Gunn, and he's like air quotes good at this. But first off, his Guardians of the Galaxy success is just because people had trust in the MCU at that point. But the thing is that it'd be one thing if again he had like even Bruce Wayne just show up, or Batman or Wonder Woman show up, because then those would bring more people. But I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, you're bringing in a bunch of D-listers.
Yeah, sure. You could definitely call them D-listers for sure. I mean, that's definitely like Mr. Terrific. You'd be kind of hard pressed to find a general audience member to know who Mr. Terrific is or what his power set is or lack thereof. You know, you'd be hard pressed to find. I mean, yeah, like you said, Hawk Girl's probably the most well known. Guy Gardner might be the second most well known, just because Green Lantern's such a well known name, and so you just say Green Lantern, and
True.
they're like, okay, but then they'll come and watch and be like, oh, like this guy's kind of different. Like, which one is this? So I do think that having some of these characters is just it's an interesting choice, and I think a lot of that will hinge on trailers. Honestly, how good of a
Yeah.
trailer can you make? How excited can you get people to see these new characters? And you know, who knows? Maybe it'll have the Guardians of the Galaxy effect, where the fact that it's different characters that people aren't used to is what draws people in, considering thinking like, oh, well, who is
This is no
this?
fan
What are they doing?
expectations.
Right. And for me, that could definitely be something that happens. But also to me, Guardians of the Galaxy is one of those things where it's like you caught lightning in a bottle. You know, you're able to get people invested in these characters, and that's something that's really difficult to do. And thing is, can you do it again? Yes, he did it
Mm-hmm.
for two more movies because that first movie was already so successful and people had grown attached to them. But can you do the same thing for a different group of characters again?
And a
And
different
again, that's
universe.
right, in a different universe connected to a brand that for a lot of people has left a sour or a bad taste in their mouth. Can you pull it off? And that's a tough ask.
And here's the thing, I saw a lot of people saying, I saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and I now have confidence in James Gunn handling Superman. Now, to be clear, I like Guardians 3. I thought it was really good. It was one of the best phase, whatever the hell phase projects were on. I get confused.
Which isn't saying much, to be honest, but
yeah. But what people don't realize, and this is why this is one of the things I say the most on this channel, DC and Marvel are vastly different. DC is supposed to be the darker, you can have happy up stories, but on average, DC is the more like dark, gritty superhero universe. But I want to bring up, I like Henry Cavill's Superman. I actually like the Snyderverse. I'm still going to give this movie a chance. Yeah, absolutely. I'm still going to see it because, as far as I know, he could pull it off and knock it out of the park. And you know what? That's great. And also, here's the thing for Snyderverse fans: whether or not you believe that the whole cell thing can happen, it's more likely to happen if the DC brand is healthy. And it's only healthy if these movies are successful. That's the thing here. That's why I keep telling people, still go see these movies, because if you want Netflix or whoever the hell to have any interest in selling, the brand has got to be healthy.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you're not going to have anything that you want if the brand itself is not in a good place. And I'm on the side of like, I don't really see the whole sell Snyderverse thing happening, but if it does by some way, then yeah, I mean, I don't know. My main thing is I'm torn because you have people who are fans of Snyder who are rightfully upset the way he was treated. Obviously, he was treated horribly with the studio, and
Cavill, the way Cavill was treated.
Oh yeah, and then even when they had him like release the Snyder Cut, they were still like the worst to him. He's been on record saying that. I'm torn because people say, well, if you don't boycott, then the brand will be negatively impacted. But at the same time, it's like I also like to look at it like a product at a store. If you're dissatisfied with a product and you're dissatisfied with the way that it's being managed by the higher ups, then one thing you can do, which has actually been kind of effective in regards to some brands recently even, is boycotting, which I'm not necessarily one for boycotting. I'm not one who promotes boycotting or anything like that. But that is one tactic that people have used in the past when it comes to different companies that has had some level of success. So I can see their point of view where they're like, well, I'm not getting what I wanted, so boycott. But also I think some people, I don't know really where I was going with that, but for me, I'm just kind of torn in that regard. It just doesn't really, either way, I can see points on either side.
The way I see it happening is DC does a comic book of the Snyderverse, and it gets popular.
Would be great. I'd buy that right now.
Which, by the way, you can't tell me a comic book continuation of the Snyderverse would not sell out. The dude had Final Crisis in a blurry ass Thanksgiving photo, and the Absolute Edition sold out. The $100 edition of Final Crisis, arguably one of the most confusing DC storylines of all time, came out, and it sold out. So, and here's why the comic would help with that. It's you have a like verifiable metric. It's not like with Warner Brothers hiding the numbers. You have a verifiable number about how popular this is, and you can show there is a demand for this.
I mean, for me, like I'd buy that comic right now.
Oh,
like,
me too,
no
dude.
Questions asked. It's like when I found out that Lee Bermejo is actually working with Netflix and Rebel Moon for like a graphic novel thing. I could not have been more stoked because, I mean, goodness, that's Lee Bermejo and Zack Snyder, two artists and creators that I admire immensely. Um, and there's still plenty of people who are in the Snyder fandom that would not be okay with it no matter what. They use the whole line, never compromise in the face of Armageddon type of thing. And for me, I'm just like, yeah, sure, getting live action would be great, but also beggars can't be choosers, right? You can't just die on the hill saying only live action. It's like, no, like you gotta compromise somewhere with this. Like if they give you a Snyderverse comic and that's all you're gonna get, then you better
They'll still
appreciate
buy
it.
it. By the way, anyone that tells you they wouldn't buy it, they'll still buy it. I guarantee you,
Oh
they'll still
yeah,
buy
I'd buy
it.
every
At least,
single cover.
well, me too. Of course, you've seen my office. I got all the hot toys over here.
Yeah, make me jealous every single time you send me a picture of your Hot Toys. It's like, gosh dang it, man, I'm poor.
All I need is Aquaman, Cyborg, then I have the whole league, and then I'm gonna recreate that scene at the end of ZSJL. But
dude, nice.
I'm just like I think it's more likely than people think, particularly with HBO Max, like with Warner Brothers licensing out so many exclusives. So I'm like, it's not like it's not ever going to happen. I am still convinced that the story will be concluded in some form. Somehow, some form, it's going to happen. If it's animation, hell, if it's live action, if it's comics, somewhere they're going to figure out a way to do that.
Maybe. I mean, I know that there are some things with like DC and their experience with fans of the Snyderverse. Not necessarily fans in general, but certain branches that aren't the most pleasant when it comes to voicing their grievances about Warner Brothers and such. I mean, I would see it maybe probably in about 10 years from now. I could see them releasing a comic or something to that extent once things have like quieted down, once they've kind of gotten their own cinematic universe going, or maybe it hasn't taken off and somehow it didn't do well at all, which honestly, considering how superhero films have been doing recently, would not be too far out of the realm of possibility. Then I could see them saying like, hey, let's finish something.
I honestly think that if Superman Legacy doesn't work, because we know how Warner Brothers is, I could see them throwing the baby out with the bathwater, saying, "What else do we have?"
Well, to me, it's like if this Chapter 1 slate makes it to where they are filming Batman Brave and the Bold, I will applaud them. I'm not at all saying I wish that they fail. I do not wish that people fail when it comes to creativity. That's the last thing that I want people to experience. But as far as like just looking at the landscape of entertainment and superhero films and how they're doing financially and with the general audience, like for me, I live in an area that's filled with general audience type people. Yeah. I do not live in an area that's full of comic book people or people that are just diehard fans of these characters. I live in an area that's full of people who just go and see a movie that they think looks great by the trailers, right? And as time goes on, I'm seeing more and more of those people show less and less interest in comic book movie material, just because, again, a lot of the recent releases have just not been up to snuff, you know? So I do think that them not getting through the first chapter is a real possibility. It's not something I wish, but it's definitely something that I would not be surprised if it happened.
That's why I say watch. If this thing doesn't work out, if the general audience just rejects it or is too bored of it, watch. They could at that point go to Snyder and go, you know what? Do you want to complete your stuff while we try and figure out what to do? Because I've said on your stream too, in the comments, that they should have just used it as a delaying tactic to solidify what people want and then gone in with the DCU.
Well, I mean, that would have been a smart decision, but again, when's the last time yeah, exactly. When's the last time Warner Brothers really made a smart decision that people were like, yeah, that makes sense? It's been a long time since that happened.
So
yeah, second Warner Brothers.
I love that. So our third topic that I really want to talk about is, how about this Wolverine suit?
Dude. Yes.
Oh my gosh. When I saw this, I thought it was a fan edit.
I kind of did too. And then I saw that it was Ryan Reynolds sharing it, and it's like, okay, this is legitimate. Like, holy crap,
Oh
the inner
my
child in me is
god.
screaming. Just because, like, unlike Superman or Batman or all these iconic characters, there's only been one live action Wolverine, and it's been this guy. And people have been wanting him to be in the classic suit for years, and we're finally getting it. My only slight gripe, which I think will be remedied in the film at some point, is the fact that it has sleeves. I wouldn't be surprised if
Well,
Deadpool like rips them off at some point, or they just get ripped off in order to please fans. That'd be my only somewhat gripe, and even then, it still looks great.
the reason why they have the sleeves, I've heard, is because Hugh Jackman is very susceptible to skin cancer, so they want to cover him up.
Oh, interesting. I did not know
Which
that.
either way, the suit still looks good, and I guarantee
Yeah.
you, by the way, when we see him, he will even have the cowl. I think what will happen is that we'll first see him, he'll be in the cowl, it'll get knocked off in the Deadpool fight, and then he'll stay off the entire movie.
Actually, I have a prediction about this.
All right, go ahead.
So my prediction is that people are trying to say that this is the animated Wolverine just brought into live action form. I think that's not the case. I think that this is the Wolverine we know and love from Hugh Jackman, but because it's going to go very meta, because the giant 20th Century Fox ruined thing in the
I
background,
saw
you can see
that.
photos. What I think is going to happen is that he's going to get resurrected, and Deadpool's going to go into this whole meta thing, and he's going to be in this yellow suit that he cannot stand. He's like, why am I wearing this stupid thing? And then Deadpool's going to make some like meta reference, like, oh, because the fans want to see it, and wink to the camera.
That would work. Well, they
Yeah.
could also make a reference to that line in X-Men 1 where Cyclops goes, what do you expect? Yellow spandex?
Oh, yeah. If they don't reference that, that'd be a complete missed opportunity.
Now, here's the thing. Here's what's got me thinking. There is some rumor that like the other original Fox X-Men are going to show up. If they do, how dope would it be if they're also in like their classic suits, like the Jim Lee designed X-Men suits?
That'd be so awesome. I mean, seeing Cyclops in his classic suit, if they're able to get that figured out, Jean Grey, I mean, goodness, that'd be absolutely fantastic. I mean, of course, you already have a jam-packed movie full of cameos, if the rumors are indeed true, with Jennifer Gardner being Elektra for some reason. That's one of the things they brought. Right, but that's one of the things they brought back, which to me is like super confusing, because I mean, we all know her Elektra stuff. I mean, she was fine in the Daredevil movie with Ben Affleck, but her Elektra movie, oof.
And Lord Thoth brings up a good point. I'm getting that hot toy. I'm getting the Wolverine hot toy.
Oh my gosh, you'd be a fool not to.
Oh yes, and I guarantee you, with the way Marvel movies have been, when we first see the da-na-na-na-na-na,
oh gosh,
because they have been
amazing.
playing that with any reference to a mutant, they would be stupid if they didn't play that music.
Oh, 100%. I mean, another missed opportunity that would be, but considering this is Ryan Reynolds and he is like all into just the fun and making sure fans are involved, like I would be absolutely shocked if they didn't do something to that extent.
Now, there was this other funny theory that people are like, no, this is actually just the actor Hugh Jackman, and Deadpool keeps trying to put him in the suit and tell him he's Wolverine.
Oh gosh. Well, he does have the claws, so I think that rumor's pretty debunked at this point, but no, I saw this and I was very, very excited. My only what was the term I'm looking for? The only thing I'm concerned about is how do they handle the cowl? If they make it to where it's nanotech and it just appears out of nowhere, I would not be happy, because every single cowl and helmet in Marvel movies recently, or even DC movies too, has been basically nanotech that just appears out of thin air, like
nanotech or like magic or something.
Yeah, because like Hawkman, you can justify that because it's into metal, right? You can justify that. But every other person, like Ant-Man, then you had Jane Foster and Thor: Love and Thunder, Flash. Yeah, pretty much everything has just been nanotech, but they just need to make it a regular cowl, like we saw at the end of the Wolverine film, where I guess the deleted scene, where he opens up the briefcase and boom, there it is. But yeah, that would be I would not be happy if that were the case, that they just all of a sudden
now. Here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. This could be the Wolverine in the timeline. My theory is that this is Hugh Jackman Wolverine from the movies. This taking place after the Wolverine. In other words, when Deadpool shows up in the timeline, this is following the Wolverine, and that's
Yeah,
the
so
suit that was
before
in the
Logan.
briefcase. Yeah, before Logan. Because that's the other question people had when they found out that Hugh Jackman was coming back. And I'm like, Deadpool has time travel. It doesn't make a difference if he died in Logan.
Yeah, true. Like that was never going to really be an issue for people. The only issue that would have been was, would it be good to have him in the movie if he's already got such a great swan song of a movie with Logan? I mean, because Logan's just, you can't get much better than Logan. Logan
I
is just an
just
amazing
watched it
movie.
today, and I was like, oh, yes.
Yeah, it's just, you can't get much better than that, if I'm being quite honest.
But arguably, it's actually a good idea to bring him back, particularly to put him in this, because this is the one thing comic book fans have always wanted since they started doing these X-Men movies. They were like, please put him in the yellow suit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've seen a lot of people tweeting out saying, you know, DC, this is how you do honorary cameos. Like, this is how you handle it. It's like, okay, well, that's kind of early to say that, just because we haven't really seen it. But to some extent, I can absolutely agree. Just like the suit you're giving him, like how he looks, how you involve him in the story. Like, I mean, it's great because, like, for me, I love seeing this because I know I'm in the minority here, but I actually really enjoy X-Men Origins Wolverine, except for what they did to Deadpool in that movie.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I'll give you some of the VFX is wonky, but I do actually enjoy that movie.
Oh, it's such a fun, like, guilty pleasure superhero film for me. I really do enjoy it. And so seeing them on screen together again, like working together, I think that's just a really cool thing. And they will definitely reference that for sure. Like, hey, remember the time where I had my mouth shut? And Wolverine's just like, I don't know what you're talking about.
And Wolverine's like, that must be a really great timeline. But going back to what you said about honorary cameos, we can also like compare this to like Michael Keaton's Batman, since he showed up in Flash. And the thing is, what do you think? I don't think I ever asked you this. What do you think of the bat suit in the Flash for Keaton?
For me, it looked fine. My only main thing that really bugged me was that they never. I would have loved the suit if they had some like brace supports or things that showed why an 80-year-old Bruce Wayne could still move around like that.
True, yeah,
but they never did. Like I saw concept art for a Keaton batsuit when he's older. I think it was a comic book version, and I saw that and it looked great. And I was like, hopefully they have something like this in the Flash to show why he's able to move around like he is, but they never did.
They literally could have just done what Kingdom Come did.
Exactly, just have like some supports that show like he can still move around and just things like that. That would have done so much, but they just didn't do that, and so that part kind of did bother me. But that's not necessarily a complaint with the film, because I mean that's, you can only do so much of that. That's just a preference rather than a complaint.
I enjoyed the Flash movie for what it was.
Sure, yeah, I had no real. I mean, aside from the CGI, because I'm a visuals guy, I'm an artist, so you have to impress me. Yeah, you have to impress me visually in order for me to take the story seriously, and the Flash visually for a lot of the film just did not.
What do you think? Are you buying that whole excuse that at least the Chrono Ball scenes were like that on purpose?
No, I don't buy that whatsoever. I think that, I mean, they said that while the movie was still in theaters. Of course, they're not going to say like, "Oh, we dropped the ball on the CGI. That's our bad. Come still see our movie." No, they're not going to do that. What they're saying, "Oh, well, it was on purpose. It's distorted." And it's like, there's a difference between distorted and CGI unfinished. That was clearly unfinished CGI. It was like watching the Polar Express, which, if you watch the Polar Express in the year 2023, it's not a pleasant time.
Which, by the way, I don't know if you caught this, but in that Chrono Ball scene, they have the third point that canonizes ZSJL.
Yeah, they do. They had Superman come back to life. They had Bruce Wayne throwing batarang. They had Aquaman pointing at the Flash after for that little gag that's in Zack Snyder's Justice League,
which I love.
Yeah, so I appreciated that. It kind of felt
the
like
Bizarnov thing. Iris says, "Didn't I run into you a couple of years back?"
Yeah. So they definitely had some inclusions there, but it all kind of felt like half baked. Like, oh yeah, see, we're fine.
The only thing I wish. They announced the Flash special features are going to have like deleted scenes and stuff, and I'm like, I will pay whatever to have like an alternate ending thing where we could see the Cavill, Gadot, and Keaton ending.
Oh, I'd be shocked if they included that in the special features. That'd
If
be
they
them admitting,
did,
like, we had a better ending. But
yeah, I know. I'm just like, it's because the George Clooney thing. I'm just like, why?
oh, George Clooney, that I don't
I
know.
recently rewatched Batman and Robin, and I will say it had the most infuriating thing. So every Batman, except for like Batfleck, as a matter of fact, has gone like, I'm Batman in like a cool way. Keaton, Clooney was he just drops out of the roof and goes, hi freeze, I'm Batman.
You got to include the head bob
What?
too, like, hi, Freeze, I'm Batman.
I'm like, what the heck? Stop trying to
It's
sound like you're cool. Hey, what's up, Lawrence?
that movie is all sorts of infuriating for me. I remember a couple of years back, I did a marathon of watching Batman films, and I did like a review series on them when I was first starting out on YouTube. And when I got to when I got to Batman and Robin, I was filled with just a ridiculous amount of dread. And I watched it, and within the first 10 minutes, I was like, yep, it's worse than I remember. It is worse than I remember. I really have a hard time with that movie. So seeing Clooney at the end of The Flash, I was just like, I get you're trying to do a gag, and I get you probably couldn't get Bale. And I know, like, Val Kilmer's not really an option, but why? Why?
Or
Like,
just,
it would have been
or
better.
here's
It
the
would have been
idea.
better.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. It would have been better if they had simply done. I think what they did in test screenings is they showed the Bruce Wayne's feet getting out of the car, and then Flash saying, "Who the heck is this?" and then cut to black. Like, that would have
Or
been immensely better.
here's a better idea. Use this as a way to say goodbye to the old universe. Have Cavill, Gadot, and Affleck show up at the end to say goodbye.
Yeah, but Warner Brothers wasn't going
Yeah.
to be caught
So
dead
speaking of
doing
Warner
that.
Brothers, our last topic, I want to ask you. So, what are your thoughts on Blue Beetle so far, in terms of
I mean,
like
I've liked what I've seen from the trailers. I mean, it looks like it'll be a fun movie.
suit looks
Do I?
good.
The suit does look really good. Do I think it'll make money? I'll be shocked if it does.
Honestly, yeah, because here's what you have to understand about this is from a regime where they were literally green lighting everything that anyone came to them with. Blue Beetle should
Yep.
not none of these projects. You shouldn't have gotten Blue Beetle. You shouldn't have gotten Birds of Prey. You shouldn't a Batgirl movie should never have been considered until you had Batman, Superman firmly established, and you never did. And then Thras says Blue Beetle will fail. The movie's dead in the water. It probably is, because here's the thing. No one knows who Blue Beetle is.
That's another issue too, is that the general audience is it's gonna be really hard to get them there, and also the fact that they're not really promoting it. Like the
second trailer just came out.
Yeah, and it comes out what, next month?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Warner Brothers, after losing money with the last couple of films that they have released with DC, they know, like, hey, we have to really limit how much we can spend on marketing, and that's going to be a big problem for Blue Beetle because, again, like you said, this is a character that's not really well known to the general audience, and so you really have to make sure you get the word out there, like, hey, this is a new character that you've never seen before. And with the limited amount of marketing that they've been doing, it's they're going to be hard pressed to find people to be like, okay, I care about this enough to go see it, especially when going to the theaters nowadays is just not as glamorous as it used to be, at least with the general audience.
Plus the fact, I know that James Gunn said this takes place in the new universe or like it's included, but the fact that, and this is one of the reasons I think The Flash failed. One of them. There are many different reasons, but I think one of them is because before this movie came out, James Gunn, like a dunce, announces, yeah, we're rebooting, so none of this stuff matters.
Oh, yeah, and I said that as soon as he announced that slate. It's like, why would you announce this now before you've released these 3 other movies that are concluding this other universe? Why would you do that? You're literally setting yourself up to fail and giving the audience a mentality of, well, it doesn't matter anyway. Why watch it? And that's exactly what happened with, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, with The Flash, and it's going to happen with Aquaman 2. Aquaman 2 is going to bomb super hard, I think. Probably not as hard as The Flash, just because people like Jason Momoa more than Ezra Miller, just in general. But Blue Beetle definitely faces an uphill battle, and it really boggles my mind when James Gunn says, "Oh, well, yeah, Blue Beetle's in the new DCU, but Superman Legacy is going to be the first DCU film." It's like, well, technically speaking, Blue Beetle's coming out first, so that
So it's
doesn't
the
make any
first.
sense.
Watch, as soon as the movie comes out, and if it bombs, he's gonna say, "I changed my mind," because you know how James Gunn always changes his mind, so he can't get caught
Yeah, it's
up
like
in
I didn't
lying.
lie, I just changed my mind. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's definitely probably what's going to happen. If it bombs, he'll second guess including it. I mean, he'll probably try to keep the actor in some regard. I mean, who knows? Maybe this is one where he actually lives up to a promise and says like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna stay." And of course, then again, if it bombs super hard, then what would be his motivation for keeping him? But again, we'll have to see. Do I hope that it's successful because I think it'll be really exciting to see Blue Beetle get his day in the sun.
Plus, they could
But I
use it as like a way to bring in also Ted Cord because they reference him in there. And since we're getting a Booster Gold series, hopefully, I want a Blue and Gold buddy cop series, please.
Yeah, I mean that'd be awesome. I think that'd be really great. But again, you have to get through to the general audience in a time
Mm-hmm.
when going to the theaters for superhero films is not the glamorous thing right now that people necessarily want to do,
Mm-hmm.
which is my main concern.
Plus, they're getting more expensive. There's any number of things that are like really like against DC right now. I still think they can pull through with certain projects, but still, that's why I'm like, you shouldn't label Blue Beetle as your first thing. Your first movie, it shouldn't even be Creature Commandos. It should be Superman.
Yeah, Creature Commandos is just such an odd choice for one of your first things that you're doing. I mean, an animated show. I
Actually,
mean,
the first. It's not even one of the first. It's the first.
yeah, it's just a really odd choice in general that I still can't quite understand why yet. I mean, I guess I get it. It's a ensemble type of film. People like his ensemble work with Guardians of the Galaxy, um, but still, I don't know. I just it's concerning.
Plus, again, it's a niche. It's an animated project. A lot of people may not watch it, and it's just like you're falling into the what the trap that the MCU is falling into, with everything feeling like homework and feel like you have to watch 8,000 different pieces of content to understand what the shows are doing.
Oh yeah,
And
and
then
that's
he
a huge
says he
problem.
even wants to bring in gaming.
Okay, as soon as he announced that, I knew this is stupid. Because look, Marvel tried getting into gaming too with the MCU. They tried the Avengers game. They tried all these different things. That did not go well. People did not like that Avengers game.
Plus the
And
fact
they've
it wasn't even tied into the MCU. And here's the problem: if you put plot points that are really important in the games, I would say about good 80% of the audience is not going to get those plot points because 80% of the audience are probably not gamers.
right. And the thing is like for me, the MCU is barely keeping people on with TV shows like Secret Invasion. Like I still have yet to see any of the episodes of that, even though I've heard great things about it.
I've enjoyed it.
And that's the same thing for a lot of general audience members. Is like if the MCU, with as successful as that's been, as much of a hardcore loyal audience as that has attained, can't do movies, video games, and TV shows all at the same time and be super successful in all of them. What makes you, as James Gunn, think that you can do the same with DC, which has so much baggage to it over the past decade? That
Yeah.
to me, it just sounds like a pipe dream right now.
Yeah, it's like David brings up a good point. I don't think that it should even be in TV because Marvel has proven that doesn't work. Or what they should, the way Marvel could have made this work is some years don't do, is the years that you have TV shows coming out, don't do movies. Make that
Yes,
the yearly, because that's why it was easy to keep track of up until Endgame, because it was like you get a movie a year pretty much. So it was really easy to keep track of what was going on.
yeah, it wasn't oversaturated, and like you said before, it didn't feel like it was just homework, it didn't feel like you were like, "Oh, I gotta see this and understand this next part." No, it's just like, what's the new adventure for Marvel? What is going on here? What's going on with this character? And you see the one project. So I absolutely agree. Having just a TV show for a year and not have a movie, like that's really great. It keeps things interesting. It keeps people engaged. Instead, you're out here being like, "Well, okay, I didn't see the last three things, so excuse me, now I'm behind. Why bother really getting back into it, that's a big trap that Marvel has definitely fallen into.
Now, speaking of universes, isn't it kind of interesting how when all before these castings come out, they also announced that like, oh yeah, the Matt Reeves universe is going to be expanding with different directors, stuff. We're going to build out that universe. So I'm like, how much want to bet that that's just Warner Brothers saying, in case this James Gunn universe fails, we always have this.
I mean, yeah, and you know that's a smart thing too, because people have really enjoyed Matt Reeves' Batman. I
I
love the
did.
Batman. I'm very excited for
It
whenever
had
the
pacing
Penguin.
issues, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's for me. That's the main DC thing that I'm excited about
Me
personally
too.
because it was just well made, you know, and it was unique and it did its own thing. My only concern that I have is that when they say they're expanding on it, I hope they simply mean that they're expanding on the villains and culture of Gotham. That's what I hope that they mean. And if they try to incorporate, you know, all these different like their own version of Superman or whatever, I really would be concerned about that.
I don't think they're doing that because I'm sure that because I think Matt Reeves is very like resistant to bringing in like he wanted to keep it very like grounded.
Yes.
And then one of my co-hosts actually said, well, Warner Brothers could always overrule Matt Reeves, and that's true, but do they really want that bad PR?
I mean, they have that history with Zack Snyder already. Do they really want to make another Zack Snyder situation with Matt Reeves? And plus,
Because
like, the thing with the Batman is that one of the main things that got people so excited about that story in the first place is the fact that it was its own thing, that it was a
it's like
standalone.
the Nolan movies.
Yeah, you had no prerequisites. You just had to go in and watch a well-made story about Batman. There was no baggage to it. And if they try to expand that into a further universe, then you lose that appeal that it had to begin with. And so I hopefully they're smarter than that. But then again, I always say this is Warner Brothers talking about.
I choose to believe they're just explaining the Batman part of it. But by the way, did I
Yes.
tell you that I went to this event here that where they played the movie, but all the music was a live orchestra.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was dope.
That's
It was
exciting. That
dope.
that Batman theme. With
When
just
you
the
hear
orchestra.
that, oh my, that is one of the most badass Batman themes I think ever.
Oh, absolutely agree. I absolutely love that theme. It's gosh, I really
And
do
by
love
the
that. I have
way,
the steelbook of that. I need to watch that again.
that Batman also kills and uses a gun in that movie.
Yeah. Well, where does he use a gun? Is it in the final fight with the Riddler goons? Or
Yes,
what?
because what happens is that the Riddler goon aims a gun at him, and then Batman redirects it at someone else. That still counts by Batman's own
Yeah.
rules. That counts.
Yeah. True. And it's like I'll say this again for those who maybe haven't heard me say this before. With Batman and Superman, if they kill, I do not care. Because here's why. In a lot of situations, if they don't kill the villain, they're almost worse than the villain. Like for me with Batman
Yep,
and Joker, like Joker commits just homicide on a regular
genocide.
basis. Yeah, straight up genocide. And if you're not going to finally end him just because your own superior moral code, then you're no better. So for me, I'm a huge Batman fan. I have a ton of Batman comics and I read them constantly. But even for me, I'm just like, you know what? I could not care less about his no killing rule. If it's written in the story and it's well written, great. If he's a Batman that is like jaded and kills, also great. It just depends on the story.
But it's like even with that, because if you watch like Christopher Reeve's Superman killed Zod because he
Yep.
turned him into a
Well,
human and
because
punched him into a wall. So I'm like,
for me, because like if you look at the comic industry's history, right,
mm-hmm.
you really learn to realize that the reason that these characters a lot of times have a no kill rule isn't because they're morally superior. It's because the villains are popular and the writers want an excuse to keep them around.
And it was because the comics code.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just like, and then my favorite, I had someone say, I hate Ben Affleck's Batman because he kills people and uses guns. My favorite Batman's Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
And I was like, do you want me to explain it to you?
Just send them the compilation video of
I
all
did.
the people that Michael
I
Keaton's
did.
Batman killed.
I sent it to her afterwards, and she's like, "Oh yes, you're right." But yeah, I
mean,
really don't
look
care.
at Ace Chemicals alone. I mean, he drops bombs from the Batmobile and kills like 20 Joker goons just right there.
Yeah, and plus the fact Batman's supposedly anti-gun, but he has cannons strapped to every single vehicle he drives.
Oh yeah, it's just inconsistent.
He's
Honestly,
a
is what
hypocrite,
it is.
really, when you think about it. It's like even Arkham Batman when he's like, I don't use no Bale Batman. I don't use guns. Let's go hop in my tank.
Yeah. But
Or
hey, the tank
like,
comes in black, right?
yeah, exactly. Or like in that scene, there's a scene in Dark Knight when he's saving Harvey from the Joker's rocket attack. Batman drives the Batmobile into a truck, and the truck's like cab jumps up and like gets crushed. So I'm like, he just killed someone. And let's
Oh
not
yeah.
forget the whole I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you debacle. But
The same freaking thing.
same freaking thing. But yeah, so I'm gonna leave it at that. This was a great discussion. So Dawson, tell the fine people at Comics League where everyone can find you, and what have you got coming out in your channel or art and stuff.
Yeah. First of all, always great to talk to you, man. Always great to nerd out with you about these things.
Heck yeah.
Always appreciate having me. As far as Four Nerds, we should be having an episode tomorrow on the Four Nerds Network, so you can just find us on YouTube at the Four Nerds Network. As far as my art is concerned, I've posted a lot of new prints, or several new prints, on my website, djwart.com recently, and actually I have a couple conventions coming up. Actually, I have Big Lick Comic Con in Roanoke, Virginia, on August 5th and 6th. I'm fighting a Lionel in Tears of the Kingdom right now, so I'm having a hard time thinking. Yeah, 5th and 6th of August, I have Big Lick Comic Con. And then in September, I will be attending and having a table at Baltimore Comic Con, one of the bigger conventions on the East Coast and in the country.
There you go.
Which is very, very exciting. It took me our first time at Baltimore. And that'll be, I think that's, it's a 3-day convention. I can't remember exactly which days, but it's the middle of September. But I'm very, very excited because a lot of great comic creators are going to be there, a lot of popular ones. And it's going to be the biggest convention I've been to date. So yeah, if people aren't able to go there, just go check out the art at djwart.com. And we just posted a Old Man Logan print today.
I saw that. It looks so good.
Yeah, I was really, really excited about that one. So yeah, djwart.com. Go check it out.
And by the way, all those awesome character designs that I've been posting for my comic, that's all Dawson because he's the artist. So those are awesome, by the way, dude. Particularly our bounty hunter character that you put out. I was like, whoa.
Oh yeah, that one was a lot of fun. I liked really trying to get the whole I'm not going to give it away for other people, but I really like the aesthetic that we were able to get on that one. So that was really, really fun. I'm having a really good time with those.
But by the way, speaking of cons, I got my first trade of Invincible signed by Ryan Otley at SuperCon.
Oh, you're kidding.
I got that, and I got the first trade of the Spencer Spider-Man run signed.
Dude, speaking of Invincible, did you see the variant cover for that Greg Capullo posted?
Yes.
Dude,
Capullo.
Capullo was my guy. I just need to meet him. That's all I need in my life is to meet him.
If they do a Snyderverse comic, I'm like, it's Fabok, Lee, or Capullo would be my ideal people. Bermejo, yeah, but it's got to be Fabok, Lee, or Capullo. I will be 100% fine with any of those.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean that'd make my world, honestly.
Yeah. As for Comics League, we have Comics League Dark, which is our new be on Fridays at midnight, and then Under Two Capes this week. We're talking about our favorite DC animated projects, so that'll be pretty cool. And then this weekend, on Saturday, we are doing a live watch through of Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Dang,
nice. All 4 hours. And I will be getting my YouTube memberships all set up soon since I now qualify for that finally. So we're gonna be really playing around with that. So on that note, everyone, like, comment, subscribe. All of Dawson's links are in the description. And yeah, stay working. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.